What would you do if someone desecrated the one thing that held your family's pride together? In the quiet suburb of Willow Creek, where manicured lawns and HOA rules reigned supreme, a single act of malice shattered the fragile peace of our community. This is the story of how a woman named Karen, fueled by entitlement and rage, crossed a line that could never be uncrossed, and how her actions left scars deeper than any of us could have imagined. It was a crisp October afternoon, the kind where the air smells of fallen leaves and the neighborhood hums with anticipation for the annual HOA Fall Festival. My mother, Evelyn, a Vietnam War veteran, had spent weeks preparing for the event. At 65, she was the heart of our community, always volunteering, always smiling, despite the weight of her past. Her most treasured possession was a Silver Star Medal, awarded for her courage as a nurse under fire. She wore it proudly at every community event, pinned to her chest like a badge of survival. That medal wasn't just metal, it was her story, her sacrifice, her proof that she'd faced hell and come out stronger. The festival was in full swing, with kids chasing each other through hay bales and neighbors swapping gossip over apple cider. Evelyn was at the veterans' booth, sharing stories with a small crowd, her medal glinting in the sunlight. I, her daughter Lily, stood nearby, watching her light up as she recounted tales of resilience. That's when Karen strode in, her designer heels clicking like a warning shot. Karen was the HOA president, a woman whose name had become synonymous with control. She was in her late 40s, with a sharp bob haircut and a smile that never reached her eyes. To her, Willow Creek was her kingdom, and she ruled it with an iron fist cloaked in politeness. She'd clashed with Evelyn before over everything from garden gnomes to mailbox colors, but today, something darker simmered in her gaze. "Evelyn, your booth is blocking the walkway," Karen snapped, her voice cutting through the chatter. "Move it, now." Evelyn, ever calm, explained that the booth was exactly where the HOA had approved it to be. The crowd murmured in agreement, but Karen's face twisted. "You think you're special because of that medal?" she sneered, stepping closer. "You're just an old woman playing hero." The words hit like a slap, but Evelyn stood her ground. "This medal represents lives saved, Karen. It's not a prop." Her voice was steady, but I could see the hurt in her eyes. I wanted to step in to tell Karen to back off, but before I could, she lunged forward, her heel catching the edge of Evelyn's table. The table wobbled, and in a heartbeat, the medal slipped from its pin, clattering to the ground. Time slowed. The crowd gasped. Karen froze, her eyes locked on the medal now lying in the dirt. For a moment, I thought she'd apologize, pick it up, make it right. Instead, she stepped forward, her heel grinding the medal into the earth. The crunch of metal against stone echoed like a gunshot. "Oops," she said, her voice dripping with mockery. "Guess it's not so special now." I lunged toward her, rage blinding me, but my neighbor Marcus, a quiet man who'd always kept to himself, grabbed my arm. "Lily, don't," he whispered, his voice urgent. "She's not worth it." His eyes, usually distant, burned with something I couldn't place: grief, maybe, or recognition. I didn't know then that Marcus would become the twist in this story, the one who'd reveal a truth none of us saw coming. Evelyn's face crumpled as she knelt to retrieve the medal, its once shiny surface now scratched and dented. The crowd was silent, the festival's joy snuffed out. Karen smirked, turning to walk away, but I wasn't letting her off that easily. "You're going to pay for this," I said, my voice shaking with fury. The next day, I filed a police report. Desecrating a military medal, especially one awarded for valor, wasn't just a personal slight, it was a crime. The story spread like wildfire through Willow Creek, and soon, the community was divided. Some defended Karen, claiming it was an accident, while others rallied behind Evelyn, outraged by the disrespect. Social media erupted, with posts on X calling Karen everything from heartless to a disgrace. One post, from an anonymous account, simply read, "Karen's not who you think she is. Wait for it." The court date came quickly. Karen stood in the courtroom, her usual confidence replaced by a nervous tick in her jaw. The judge, a stern woman with a no-nonsense demeanor, listened as I recounted the incident, my voice breaking as I described my mother's pain. Evelyn sat beside me, clutching the damaged metal, her hands trembling. Then came the twist. Marcus took the stand. "I knew Karen's brother," Marcus began, his voice low but steady. "He was a soldier killed in action in Iraq. Karen never got over it. She hated anything that reminded her of the military, of what she lost. That's why she went after Evelyn's medal." The courtroom fell silent. Marcus's words painted a picture of Karen not as a monster, but as a woman broken by grief, lashing out at a symbol of the system that took her brother. It didn't excuse her actions, but it shifted the narrative, forcing us to see her humanity, however flawed. The judge's ruling was swift. Karen was sentenced to 6 months in a rehabilitation program for anger management, and substance abuse. Rumors had surfaced about her drinking and 200 hours of community service, specifically helping veterans at the local VA hospital. "You will learn respect," the judge said, her voice like steel. Karen nodded, tears streaming down her face, but I felt no satisfaction. The victory was hollow. Back home, Evelyn tried to move on. She polished the metal daily, as if she could erase the scratches, but the damage was done. Not just to the metal but to her spirit. She stopped volunteering, stopped smiling as easily. I watched her fade, and it broke me. I wanted to confront Karen again, to demand she understand the depth of what she'd done. But Marcus's words haunted me. Karen was hurting too, in her own twisted way. One evening, I found Evelyn sitting in the backyard, the medal in her lap. "Lily," she said softly, "this isn't about the medal. It's about what it stands for. I survived war, but this feels like a different kind of battle." Her words cut deep, and I realized the true cost of Karen's act wasn't the dented metal, it was the wound it reopened in my mother's heart. Months later, I saw Karen at the VA hospital, fulfilling her community service. She was different, quieter, her eyes heavy with something like regret. She approached me, her voice barely above a whisper. "I'm sorry," she said. "I didn't know what that medal meant to her, to you." I wanted to scream, to tell her sorry wasn't enough, but all I could do was nod. Forgiveness felt impossible, but so did holding on to the hate. The community tried to heal. The HOA elected a new president, and the fall festival was canceled the next year. Evelyn started attending a veterans support group, where she found solace in sharing her story with others who understood. But the medal, once a source of pride, stayed in a drawer, too painful to wear. As for me, I learned that justice doesn't always mend what's broken. Karen's punishment might teach her empathy, but it couldn't restore my mother's light. The anonymous ex-post had been right. Karen wasn't who we thought. She was a woman shaped by loss, just as Evelyn was shaped by survival. Their pain collided in a moment that changed us all, leaving behind a truth too heavy to bear. Sometimes, the things we break can never be fixed. ND.